This is Martin, who's going to be with us today, and from Argentina. He's a former orchestral conductor and music producer. He's now dedicated to spreading the message of A Course in Miracles and runs the fastest growing YouTube channel about the Course in Spanish, with an audience of 125,000 people from around the world. In the past few years, he's traveled to more than 10 countries and has produced a prolific number of lectures, programs, workshops dedicated to A Course in Miracles. And he has my friend Hildy, who's on with us, to thanks for contacting me and asking me if you could come on. Well, Martin, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, John. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
By the way, we were talking earlier about, for those of you who came in late, Martin and I found out that we have exactly the same birthday. Of course, not the same year. So the question I always like to start with someone that's new is, how did this happen to you? I mean, how did you stumble onto this thing called A Course in Miracles? And why would you give up, and it seems like you have, a whole career in music? Want to share that with us?
Yes, of course. Well, actually, I think the story of how I got to the course is a variation of the "there has to be another way" story. I think in one way or another, we all get to that point. Actually, I love that quote from the course that actually says that our tolerance to pain is not infinite. So there comes a point in everyone's life that that you say, I can't do this anymore. There has to be another way, or some variation of the sort. But what was funny in my case was that I got to that point in my early 20s. I don't know, 22, 23. I'm now turning 40, the same day that you will celebrate your birthday. I was actually having a great life. On paper, everything was great. I was finishing my career with the best grades possible. I have already been appointed for different jobs about music. I was living my passion. I have nice relationships. I had health. Uh, Everything was awesome. But I remember one day that I went outside and I bathed in the sun and deep breath. Oh, my life is wonderful. I have everything I want. I'm so grateful. And when I said that, my heart crushed. I don't know why, but I began feeling an emptiness, like a void inside my chest. And I realized that, yeah, I had a lot of things that my ego wanted, but there
Right.
was something missing. There was something really missing, um, which actually wasn't a surprise because I've been interested in spirituality and philosophy and all that kinds of stuff since I was a child. I remember being a teenager and trying to learn to meditate and get out of my body and things like that, and reading spiritual books and philosophy books. And also, the way I approached music, which I started when I was very, very young, also had a spiritual, I don't know, dimension to it, because I always felt that music was a way of reaching to deeper parts of ourselves and to move all those feelings that we have inside and to discover what we really are. And I always thought music in that way. I had the fantasy actually of writing a song or a symphony or something like that that was so good that it would bring peace to the whole world. That was
Good.
my fantasy when I was a child.
Sure.
So there was like a longer path to the course. But well, when that realization came that something was missing, I began searching, and as you may figure out, a lot of synchronicities started happening. Like this guy recommended me the book. I was reading, I don't know, The Power of Now, which also mentions the book. And well, long story short, one day I was walking, and a voice in my head said, turn left. So I did. I don't know why. And I came to a place where there was a church on this side and a bookstore on the other side. And when I look at the bookstore, in the middle of the, I don't know how you say, well, of the shelves that were pointing to the street, there was A Course in Miracles. So I bought it immediately and I started reading it. God knows what I understood there at that time. And it was a shock because, as well, sometimes it happens, the Christian language. I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I actually wasn't baptized as a child. I decided to by being baptized when I was 13, but because I don't know, my friends were doing it, so let's do it. And so the Christian language was actually a shock to me, but there was something that said, keep going, keep going, keep reading this, keep reading this. And what it happened to me that was that I knew this, I knew this, I knew this. There was a sense that this was what I was searching for. And actually, as I told you the other day, when I was a child, I wrote songs, and the lyrics, some of them were very similar to some of the quotes of the course, and I was like, oh my God. And since I was a child, I always felt there has to be something more than this. Life cannot be just this. So when
Right.
I started reading the course, I felt I found my way, and for almost 20 years it was my individual path. I spoke to friends and things like that. They all sent me to the psychiatrist because if you tell your 20-year-old friends that the world doesn't exist, they will recommend you to see
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
someone.
Yeah, sure.
But I very quickly learned that this was for me. I don't have to speak about this book to my friends, and but well, 20 years it was my path. I I studied non-stop for 20 years, and my life kept going. I started developing my career as a conductor, as a producer. I had my band. Everything was going great, and I will wrap up with this. But this part of the story is actually funny because it was very similar to the way it all started. Because I was on vacations, and once again, everything was great. I have a really great job. I was fulfilling my dream. I was working as a musician. Everything was great. And one morning, I said, how would my life be if I didn't have this job as a conductor? So I like to write. So I sat down and I began to write. And I realized that all of what I have been learning through the last couple of years, not only about the course, because I like to read a lot of books and to investigate in different paths, and I began to feel that I had a lot of things inside of me and I had to share them because they were gonna get stuck inside of me. So I got that feeling I have to share this in some way. I don't know how, but I have to share this. The next day, the very next day, I thought to myself, I have to begin to share this knowledge. The phone rang, you're fired, with no reason whatsoever. There was no indication that I was not gonna keep with that job. Actually, I was speaking with my boss this year. We're gonna do this concert and this tour and whatever. I think about that, and the very next day, I didn't have my job. So, well, let's do it. And then the pandemic came, and we have a very, very long lockdown here in Argentina, like 9 months. And I said, okay, I'm not going to do music right now. So I started a YouTube channel to speak about the course. And I don't ask me how, but it blew up instantaneously. And now I have like a community of more than 100,000 people. And I
Oh,
left the music career and I
yeah.
completely dedicate my life to share my understanding of the course. So and what ended up happening. I remember the first time I did a lecture or a class, I don't remember what. And when the thing ended, I said, "Oh man, why I didn't start with this earlier?" Because I have so much more fun than conducting an orchestra or writing music or whatever. So my life completely changed in a way, and I love it. I love doing this. It's really what I feel, what I have to do, at least for now. So that's the story.
So there wasn't any choice.
Well, depends
There
on the
was a
level you
choice, but
speak. Yeah, yeah. It
but,
it felt like something out of the blue. It felt like something
yeah,
unexpected, but in a deeper level, I
yeah,
knew it was coming. I
yeah.
knew it was coming. Yeah, yeah,
We all know that. I mean, we all know somewhere deep inside that there's
yeah,
something else. I
yeah.
remember Carl Jung saying, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens."
Hmm. Yeah.
And so there's something in there for every one of us that says, wake up, kind of nudging you awake. But every once in a while, you get a real awakening, like you
Hmm.
can't do your job or you get fired or you don't get the job or something that kind of throws us in the right direction.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, what parts of the course are most interesting to you or most different to you from way you see the world in terms of the way the world sees itself, if that makes any sense?
Um, well, it's dynamic.
Yeah,
Through the last 20 years, I've been interested in different parts of the course. And as we spoke the other day, what I'm trying to do now is to put everything together.
right.
Don't leave anything out. What I am seeing right now, in at least in the Spanish community, is that we get too focused on only one subject. Oh,
Mm,
it's all about forgiveness. Yes, of course, it's all about forgiveness. No, no, it's all about acknowledging that this is a dream. Yeah, of course, we have that too. No, no, it's all about the holy relationships. Yeah, that's in it too. And what I began to realize is that the course says a lot of things, and
mm,
there's a reason why it sets all of those things. So what I'm trying to do now is like integrate everything and put the whole piece together, because I think that the course is like a puzzle.
mm.
In one chapter it says this, and four chapters later it says that, and then you have that lesson and in the manual for teachers. And I think that that is a teaching device. It doesn't lay it out all like, okay, this is like this and that. And that forces you to keep studying, keep reading, keep searching. And when you do that, the whole picture begins to become more clear, if that makes
Right.
sense. So I'm trying to do that, not leaving anything out, because for example, it actually happened to me. I was at a time where I was all about forgiveness, and forgiveness is knowing that this is just a dream, that you're dreaming. Yeah, of course, that's in the course. But for example, last year I developed a program that is free on YouTube, that are 33 days of forgiveness. It's
Ah,
a it's an in 11 and a half hour video about forgiveness. And when I started building that program, it's so much more than saying it's just a dream. It has a lot of different levels. It has a lot of different implications, and I was trying to be very precise. Oh, here forgiveness is more about like changing an interpretation. Here, forgiveness is more about understanding the cause of guilt. Here's forgiveness is more about understanding projection and all of and and I began realizing the course is so deep, so vast, so deep, that when you try to oversimplify it, you leave a lot of things that are really important out. And I am not saying that the course is not simple, because the course itself says it's
it's
simple, and the truth it's simple. But that doesn't mean that in our level of experience we don't need all of those different expressions and teachings and explanations of what the course is trying to tell us. So I'm trying to do that, like put everything in, having the big picture, and try to do it in a way that is actually applicable. Because there was a time for me that I was very into the metaphysics and the deep theory and all of those great explanations that the course gives us. And I have some videos where I explain all of that with drawings and animations, and here's the separation and the projection of the world and with sounds and all of that.
Yeah,
That is great, but you have to find a way to use all of that knowledge uh, to practice and then
right.
have the experience of what the course is proposing for us. The other part of the question, what was, John? The part of about the world?
I don't know, but yeah, you're right. You got to do the metaphysics, and then you do the practical part,
Yeah.
inevitable, and you search around to it. So, what part of this puzzle are you kind of? I find that as I would work on this, there will be pieces of the puzzle that I'm focusing on more than another piece
Yes.
until, all right. So, what part of the puzzle sort of fascinates you at the moment?
Um,
What do you work if you were writing or whatever? What would you be writing about?
well, I am writing two different things,
Okay.
but I don't feel that I'm focusing on that.
No.
And right now, if you want, I tell you about those books. But what I try to do is when I have an experience in my life, or a situation that I having to face, I try to look what the course says about that. For example, my partner has been enduring a very difficult sickness in the last years. So in the last couple of months, I went really deep about sickness, healing,
Mm.
psychotherapy, and I did workshops and lectures and classes and videos all about those subjects because, well, as you teach, you learn. So I went really deep into that, and I found some really amazing things about it. Because you have to keep reading the course for me, not in
Yeah.
an obsessive way, not in a fanatical way, but every time I read it, I find something new. I find something deeper. If you think that you understand the course, read it again. That's what Ken always used to say, and I think he's correct until you really get it. There, if you get to that point, then you have to leave it out or keep it in the closet. But I try to learn about the things that are uh, relating to what I'm experiencing right now. But at this very moment, I'm doing a lot of work regarding all of the distortions we introduce in the course. Uh, as the community went bigger and bigger and bigger, and having people with all kinds of experience with the course, and beginners, and people that I don't know studied for a lot of years. And what I am seeing from my perspective, this is just an opinion, there are a lot of distortions introduced in the practice of the course. So I am doing a lot of content, not to point the finger at anyone, not to saying you're wrong, I'm right, just to say, well, these were my mistakes. Maybe you are making the same mistakes. It's all part of the learning progress or process. And I am going really deep into that, how the ego distorts the message, how it uses to reinforces himself. And as we spoke the other day, and I think this is interesting, I think that that tendency to focus just on one part of the course is actually uh, like a subtle maneuver of the ego. Because what I begin to realize is that if you focus just on one subject, it's probably because you're afraid of the others. It could be, I'm not saying that it's always
Yeah.
like that, but it could be a form of resistance. So if you allow me, I want to tell the metaphor I told you last time about the different camps. I like to explain this with this figure. Let's imagine that there is there are different camps of students of
Mm.
the course, and there's one camp that we have all the students that are all about we are light, we are love, and we are spirit, and we are infinite beings, and we are just one. Well, and it's all about that. There's another camp where you have all the students that are all about looking at the ego, examining, looking at the illusions, uh, looking at your hatred, looking at guilt, looking at darkness, and all of that. You have the camp where it's all about the process, which is slow and about studying. There you have the other camp that it's all about you are ready now, everything is here now, and well, we could go for a
Yeah,
while.
a lot of camps.
Yeah, and what I began to realize is that in most cases, the people that were all about I am the light of the world were probably afraid of looking at their egos.
Mm.
And the people that are all about looking at their egos probably are afraid of accepting they are the light of the world. And the people that are all about
Yeah.
we are ready now, they are probably afraid of doing the process that the course invite us. And the ones that are all about the process are probably afraid of understanding that they are ready now. So I began to realize that even not only students, even teachers,
Oh,
I
yeah.
realized this because it happened to me. I said,
Sure.
oh, yeah, I'm focusing on this subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have also all of those topics in the in the course. Why you are not paying attention to that? Oh, well, because I was afraid.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
began exploring and I to categorize all of the students in different camps, and I began seeing that it was actually a form of resistance, and that is why I ended up concluding: don't leave anything out, put everything the course says, because it says it for a reason. So, um, being a course that it's all about putting the obstacles aside, I think that this is a very important part of the process,
Right.
realizing what are your resistances, what you are afraid of, and
Yeah.
slowly and kindly and lovingly go and see that so you can incorporate that part of what the course is saying into your own practice. So I'm doing a lot of videos that um try to shed some light on all of those topics. I did a very in-depth video, for example, about sects, the different organizations, and what the course proposes. I just recently did a video that was all about, okay, yes, this book is telling me that the body doesn't exist, that our needs are illusory. Yeah, yeah. But what does that mean? Should I deny the body? Should I take care of it? And if I want to take care of it, how should I do it? And I went very, very deep. Those videos are like 1 hour, 2 hour, with all of the quotes in a very, while trying to be very faithful to the text. And that's something I like to do. If I share an opinion, boom, you have it there. It's because the book says this, says that, and I always put it on screen. For example, if you allow me, I have all of the quotes and all of that kinds of stuff,
Oh,
and I explain all of the my opinions and understandings, showing you the quote. This is in
yeah,
Spanish,
yeah.
sorry, so I can go
Oh,
really in depth with all of the topics that I want to share. So that's my main focus right now. But in 2 months, who knows? I will be speaking about something else maybe.
well, it's likely just going to keep growing, and you're going to keep doing what you've been doing in terms of. But I find it's really so exciting. I mean, to keep wanting to find an area that you've already gone into, but then you realize, oh, as Ken Wapnick would say,
Yeah,
take it deeper, and
yeah,
as you take it deeper, you begin to recognize the connection with the other pieces of
yeah,
the puzzle that you were looking at already. So
yeah. And sorry, John, that I
no,
interrupt.
let's go
That
ahead.
you make me realize something. I think that there's another thing that's important, because what I also been doing in the last couple of years is not just going to the topics that maybe I was overlooking. What I also did was I started questioning some assumptions.
Hmm.
Oh, yes, the course says this. Does it really says that?
Hmm.
And I started doing that for myself. And I began to realize that I was wrong about a lot of stuff.
Can you give me an example of what that?
Well, for example, this is what I have fresh because the other day I did this video about the body. For example, I think most of us would agree that the course is all about healing the mind. And when the course
Sure.
speaks about healing, it's about healing the mind, healing your perception, healing the unconscious guilt that came from the tiny mad idea of separation, and all the metaphysical explanations that we can use um, regarding that topic.
Right.
And the course really says that.
Yeah.
But what I began realizing is that, and this is subtle, but I began hearing a lot of teachers that spoke about it's like if the body heals, it's like, no, that shouldn't happen because it's all about healing the mind. So I did this exercise. What does the course say about healing the body? And I
Hmm.
found 18 quotes in the whole book where the course actually speaks about how the body actually heals as an
Ah,
extension of the healing of the mind. Of course, it's not saying that that is wrong.
right.
If you only um, understand that part and you leave the other one out, and you begin like to, because what I also what I also felt was that there is like this notion that it's all about the inner peace, and of course it's that,
Oh,
but it's all about changing your mind, and the world doesn't change if you change your mind. And there are four quotes where the course literally says that if you change your mind, the effect will also change. So, and I was not getting that. And
hmm.
this is, I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly, because this is very subtle,
Yeah.
because I found it in myself and I found it in some of my teacher friends. It's like it was a sin if the world changes. It's like it's wrong if the world changes because it's all about changing the mind.
Right.
So the cancer won't be healed. You won't have more money. You won't have a better relationship. You're just gonna have inner peace. Your life is going to shit, but you're gonna have inner peace. And I began to question that assumption, and I began finding in the course that it actually says that yes. There's one quote, for example, in the psychotherapy pamphlet, I think, that it says that as you change the concept of yourself, I'm retranslating from Spanish, so maybe some words are not the exact
Yeah.
terms in English, but as you change your own self concepts, all of your relationships adapt to your new view of yourself. There's a quote that actually says that if you change your mind, the earth will change and reflect that change. There's
Hmm.
another quote that says that if something in the outside wouldn't change as you change your mind wouldn't actually understand that there has been a change. In
Huh.
other way, in other place, uh, well, there are a lot of quotes. So
Sure.
yeah, well, it's that. No, I began questioning all of that kind of assumptions, and in that search of trying to build the greater picture. There are more examples of other things, about the holy relationship, for example.
Hmm.
Oh, the holy relationship is with the Holy Spirit and it's in your mind. But then I did, well, I'm gonna question that, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna read the course questioning that. And when you read the manual for teachers, when you read the psychotherapy pamphlet, it speaks about a holy relationship between two people.
Yeah.
There's a quote that says, a one-to-one relationship is not the one relationship, but is the means to the one relationship. So,
Mm.
so that shed a lot of light about the holy relationship. Um, Another thing, the very definition of miracle. The very definition of miracle. I did this exercise. One of the most accepted definitions is that the miracle is a change in perception. And I'm not saying that that is wrong.
All right.
I'm not saying that that is
All
wrong.
right.
I'm just saying maybe that's incomplete. So I
Mm.
did this exercise.
Okay.
I began reading different parts of the book, and every time I have the word miracle, I replace it with change in perception. Well,
Okay.
now the paragraph that does it make sense? And in a lot of paragraphs, it didn't. But
Uh-huh.
when I put instead of miracle expression of love, it worked much better. I even used the traditional definition of miracle, and it actually worked better. And when I did that exercise, my understanding of the concept really amplified. So I invite everyone to actually do this if they want, of course, to
Yeah.
question all of those assumptions, and I'm sure you're gonna find something new and fresher and deeper, and it will further your learning experience for sure.
So what you like to put in there is an expression of love. That's what you're putting in.
Today, today I actually feel that the miracle, the best definition would probably be an expression of love, which has an actual expression in the level of the form, not only in your mind. It begins in your mind.
All
It
right.
begins with a change in perception. It
Right.
begins with the acknowledgement that you are one with your brother. It
Right.
begins by saying aside the ego. I'm not saying you don't have to do that, but I think that there's another part that completes the definition, that is expressing the love in a language, says the course, that the one who is receiving the miracle can understand. For example, there is a passage that speaks about how a miracle can induce fear in a patient.
Mm.
And the course actually says, if that's the case, you should not perform a miracle, because
Right.
the job of the miracle is to release fear or to minimize fears, not to increase it.
Right.
So there's no way in hell that the definition change in perception can apply to that expression in that paragraph of the course. It literally is speaking about giving love, healing the other person in a deeper way, of course, and that can produce fear. There's another passage that it actually says that sometimes the patient is so addicted to his sickness that if he would heal instantaneously, that would lead him to a deep depression, and he could even want to end his life, because without sickness he wouldn't have anything to live for. And there the course actually says, then the
Wow.
miracle must wait, healing must wait. So there's no way that it is referring to the miracle as a change in your own
Yeah.
perception. It's speaking about something that has to do with a relationship, that something that you give to something else. Give in the deep sense. It's not that I
Right.
have something that you don't have, I'm better, you are less. No, no, no. We're not saying that. So I think expression of love is actually a more interesting, or a more applicable definition, and it makes a lot of more of sense. And when I started reading like different versions of the course, like the urtext or the original notes, I began seeing that when Jesus spoke to Helen, he actually referred to different things that Helen did as miracles. There was
Hmm.
this like there was a report that she did for I don't know what foundation, and she did that in an experience of anger, and Jesus speaks about
Wow.
doing that report as a miracle. No,
Right.
he didn't say, "Oh, you changed your perception of your colleague that did a
Right.
bad report, and you now have forgive her." No, no, he speaks about redoing that report as a miracle that helped a lot of children.
Mm.
So, yeah, but again, I'm not saying that those definitions are wrong. I'm not
Okay.
saying that people that think that a miracle is a change in perception are wrong or are not understanding the course. I'm just inviting everyone to broaden their definitions and sometimes
Sure.
question them. And if you do, I'm sure you're gonna learn so much more.
That's in the psychotherapy pamphlet you're just talking about, right? What you were just focusing on?
No, the part about the patient being afraid of the miracle is actually in chapter 4.
Oh,
It's on the
early
early
on.
chapters.
Hmm.
What you have in the psychotherapy pamphlet, which is for me, it's a jewel. It's great. It's great.
Yeah,
What
right.
you have there is a very good understanding of the resistances, both of the patient and the therapist. And there,
Right.
what the course addresses is that the patient arrives to the therapist not wanting to heal. He
Right.
just wants a change in effects.
Right.
Basically, what the course says is, I want to have a better world. I want to have better conditions, but don't ask me to release my ego. I
Right.
won't change myself. I'm only willing to change just a little bit if that
Uh-huh.
would change the conditions of my life.
Right.
I always I explain this way. For example, let's suppose that you are overweight or something like that, and you go to the doctor and you say, "Hey, doctor, I want to lose weight." Okay. So the doctor says, "Are you willing to start a diet?" No. Are you willing to stop drinking Coca-Cola? No. Are you willing to start to work out? No. Are you willing at least to have a walk every day? No. Well, dude, it's not gonna happen. So
Uh-huh.
it's
Right.
like the you arrive to the therapist and you say, "I want to be at peace." Well, are you willing to release your judgments? No. Are you willing to release your desire for specialness? No. Are you willing to release or stop attacking your brothers? No. Are you willing to forgive? No. Well, you're not gonna have peace then. And what's funny is not that the patient does that, but also the therapist wants to change the patient's ego because he thinks that that will uh, reinforce his ego. So it's two crazy people trying to change the other one.
Yeah, right.
So that well, I think that there's a lot of that in our learning experiences
Yeah,
because
sure.
it's all about understanding what we are afraid of and looking at that fear and understanding that there's no reason to be afraid.
All right.
So
Okay.
I think that is some of the most important practice of the course.
Yeah, so do
Looking
I.
at fear, looking at illusion, and understanding that there isn't a real cause for that fear, and that's what set you free.
Believe it or not, we've been going for like 45 minutes already. So at this point, we usually ask Bud to give us a little bit of analysis of what's been going on in the chat. And
Mhm.
then after that, we're going to open the floor to questions from the folks who have joined us. Bud, you got anything there?
Yeah, we've got a couple of different things.
Yeah,
We would like to know, how do you apply the course in your daily life?
Good question.
I don't. After all of what I said, well,
We know
it's
better.
it's funny because well, it depends on the point of the of your learning journey. At the beginnings, you probably have to like do this effort of I don't know, doing the lessons or try to remember some quotes or whatever. But the course actually says that miracles are habits. There's something that should be involuntary, that should be
Right.
natural.
Right.
So, in a sense, I'm not saying that I am at that point, but I don't really feel that I have a formula to apply the principles of the course. It's just that during the whole day, I'm reading it because I am doing a class, I am having a personal session with someone, I don't know, preparing a workshop. So I'm around the material 24/7. And I think that that makes that the ideas like become a second
Right.
nature. So it's not something that I formulaically apply every day. And I'm not a fan of routines. I'm not a fan of rituals. So it's not that I have a formula. It's more like trying to be in the right mind all of the time, and not even that. I think sometimes it's all about catching yourself being in the wrong mind
Mm.
Mm.
and not punishing yourself for
Yeah,
that.
right.
For example, some of my most important learning experiences had to do with that, with those moments where I realized that I love the ego. Uh, for example,
Yeah.
there was one time that when there was like a pattern in my relationships that was still going in my life, and one day I was like, I can't stand this anymore. I don't want this anymore. So I sat down and I asked, why this keeps repeating in my life?
Mm.
Because you want it, bro. Because you like it. It's just
Mm.
as simple as
Wow.
that. And there, you're in a very important place, because at that point you can really make a change,
Mm.
or you can go south way faster, because that is a place when you can say, oh yes, I am choosing this, so I'm a stupid person, how I can, and you end up feeling more guilty. That's of course the voice of the ego. But if you, at that point when you realize that you are doing it to yourself, that you want that to happen, and you can look at that decision with kindness without punishing yourself, that is an energy where you can let it go. So it was as simple as that. You like that. You like
Wow.
that conflict. You like that kind of
Mm.
discussions. You like that struggle of power that reflects the struggle of power with God. So when I could look at that in an honest, kind way, I changed the decision and it
Mm.
never happened again. So for me, it has to do a lot with that, with catching yourself indulging in the ego, or speaking or hearing the voice of the ego. And okay, there's no sin here. It's just a wrong choice. God still loves you. You're still being spirit, whatever phrase or quote you want to use. So most of the practice has to do with that, with being alert for that. And what it ends up happening is that there gets to a point that is like more automatic, more habitual, more involuntary. And when I what started happening after that is that now, after training myself not to punish myself for choosing the ego, now I am more in a state of like yeah, cultivating the right thoughts.
Mm.
I don't feel that right now I have a lot to do like looking at the ego, looking at illusions. It's more about accepting the light. It's more about accepting the love, your true nature, etc., etc. So I don't know, guys. It's like trying to be aware of what your mind is doing. And the other thing, and this is so important for me, is helping others. That I think, yeah, forget it, what everything I just said. This is the way I apply the course. Trying to help my brothers because I
Right.
understand that the help I give them is the help that I need.
Right.
That it was what changed my life, and
Mm.
that is the way I practice the course.
Yeah.
Trying to connect with my brothers and finding together a way out of hell. And that's actually the formula of salvation, according
Yeah.
to the course. In the psychotherapy pamphlet, it actually says that someone asks for help, and other one listens and tries to help, and that is the formula of salvation. And it can just heal. Sorry, I'm retranslating from Spanish, so maybe the quote is not accurate, but that really has an impact in the way I practice the course daily. Yeah.
That's something
Thank
else,
you.
Bud?
Yeah, we got a couple more too. And
Okay.
I just, to that point, Martin, there's a great book that we recommend, and I put it in chat. It's by Ram Dass, and it's called How Can I Help? And it
Great.
will change
Mm.
how you look at helping others. And
Yeah.
it's very course aligned.
Great.
Here's another question. Martin, what are your thoughts about reincarnation and the course?
I think the course is it's very clear about it, but there's a very interesting discussion there because when the when the course speaks about reincarnation, I think it's really evident that the course is speaking at different levels. So if we are speaking in the level of reality, the course is very clear. There's no reincarnations because you never been a body even once. How you could reincarnate in different bodies if you never was a body, not even once. So metaphysically speaking, reincarnation it's an illusion because you never were a body. But from the level of the dream, from this experience, the course says two things. One is that it's not prohibited to have discussions about reincarnation. It also says that if that idea, even being illusory, if that idea helps the student understand the the eternal character of life, then that idea is being useful.
Mm.
And that is amazing because there the course is saying there is an idea that may be false, but you can use that idea constructively,
Mm.
productively. You can use that idea to put the mind on the direction of truth.
Yeah.
But then, in other places, and this is not explicit, it's implicit, the course says if you do this, you're gonna save
Yeah.
thousands of years. And so to who it's he speaking if you're gonna say thousands of years? Well, it's speaking about time in another dimension, in the sense that it is admitting that in this level, well, time goes by, and what the course is trying to shorten is the time at that level. So what I think that the course is saying there is if you practice this, if you forgive this, I don't know, relationship, you're gonna save a lot of incarnations or experiences. You're gonna like cut off different parts of the story of the universe. And also, this is not in the final release, but when you read the original notes, Jesus actually says to Helen, these abilities that you are not ready to use right now, you learned them in past lives.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
it
Mm-hmm.
depends on the level we are speaking. in the level of reality, reincarnation is an illusion. In the level of the dream, for me, it's clear that the course says that that is actually happening. But then you can further the discussion, because we could question ourselves is if time it's linear, which it isn't in a sense. So it depends on the level of depth you wanna get the discussion to. But for now, I think that, but at least that is my understanding. I don't know if you want to add up something up, John.
Yeah, I'd like to. One of the key words there is ultimately.
Yeah.
Is that ultimately there's no reincarnation. It doesn't say there's no reincarnation. It says ultimately there's no reincarnation. So it's really implying that reincarnation is something which happens in time,
Yeah.
and time is the illusion,
Exactly.
and the body's the illusion, and the world's the illusion. So within the context of illusion, yeah, there's reincarnation. You got to go through these processes across life after life after life until you grow out of it, so to speak, or wake up within whatever it is life that you're having. So then the course is very clear. There's two levels. You know, the two levels. There's heaven, but heaven is eternal state. It's not a place of time and space. And that's what is hard. It's hard for us to understand that because we live in space and time. And the body's a physical thing, and days go by from day to day. But you know, one of my favorite lines in the course is where it says, "God knows you only now." You know, so God only knows you right now. The past, that's a dream. The future, that's a dream. That's a thought about what you would like to have happen. Maybe, you know, how you want to, what your life will be like when you retire, you know, or something, some dream thing, right? But then also is your memory of your childhood. That's a dream too. So, but in time, there's reincarnation, but seeing how time's an illusion,
Yeah.
there's no reincarnation. It's really pretty simple in that sense. So
Yeah.
what we really want to get back to is we want to get back home, a real home, heaven, eternity, which I think we really have a very difficult time understanding because it's outside of sequence.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
actually, the course at what point at one point it's speaking about time, and then it stops and says, "There's no sense in keep explaining this because no one in this world can understand what is being outside of time and outside of space.
right.
Where we're not capable from this level." And one thing that is for me very very interesting is that it's not about, oh, is reincarnation real? We can have that discussion, but then the course makes a shift in the discussions and said, what are you using that idea for?
Hmm.
So if you're going to use the idea of reincarnation, for example, I was Napoleon in the last life, or I was one of the apostles. I am the reincarnation of John, and I am.
All right.
If you're using that idea to enrich your ego and think that you are special, if you're better, it's not going to be useful.
Yeah.
If you're going to use the idea of reincarnation to say, oh, I'm not happy right now because I have a trauma of two past lives, the course says, no, the problem is here now. And you have to deal with your experience here now. It's
Right.
not about the past, not about the future, as you said. So you can use the idea of reincarnations to reinforce your ego, to resist to the solution that you have available right now, or you could use that idea to understand the more eternal character of
Right.
life, on or other uses that the Holy Spirit may give it to that idea. So I think that's the important question. What are we using that idea for?
Right.
Mm,
There
that's the
are
question we
people
ask
who
of
have,
everything.
I'm sorry, there are
Yeah,
people illumined states, or I was just reading Chris Baches, and he talks about diamond luminosity, but this is all a state that really is outside of time, which you can't really talk about. Right? Other than
yeah,
the fact that there is such a state. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the course actually says that not about that state, but other more elevated states of mind it says things like you would not endure in a body a lot of time if you would be in that state, that the body could not take it. In
Right.
other places, it says that an advanced teacher or an advanced therapist is an abstraction that has no sense in the world because it's so close to heaven that he doesn't even see patients or students or whatever. So I think that we should accept the level at which we are right now. With there's a quote that I love about the course that says, God accepts you at the level you are now. What more would you need than that? So I accept that I'm here and I go step by step going up the ladder. And what I'm seeing is that sometimes we want to skip steps and we want to go to the enlightenment stage or the more elevated stage. And that uh, keeps prevents us of achieving those states. If you want the objective, you have to want the means also, says the course. So I believe I am dreaming that I am here. Okay, accept that. There's no sin in that. Let's go step by step up the ladder.
Mhm. Is there anything else on that, Bud? Well, I'm going to get around to see if folks have questions too.
Yeah, there's a couple more. And Martin, have you had any experience with hypnotherapy?
Uh, not with hypnotherapy. No.
There was a question about using hypnotherapy to release blocks, and that's a topic I can talk on for hours. So I was just curious, but that was one.
No,
And
no,
okay,
no. I didn't. I don't have any experience with that. What I could say about it is that I think that the course wants us to do a conscious work, because there is a place, for example, in the chapter about decision making, there's something really interesting that I think it's very important, but we sometimes overlook. In that chapter, it says that we are always making decisions, but we are not always conscious that we are making them. And there it says, but if you work with your conscious decisions, that will establish a pattern that will help you with the unconscious decisions.
Mm.
So what I think that the course is trying to tell us, and if you add up with some of the early lessons, what I think that the course is doing is, if you work with your conscious experiences, if you work with your conscious perceptions and apply a change in that level consistently, that will, with the help of the Holy Spirit, release all of the unconscious beliefs and whatever. Which doesn't mean that we can't do a work to search the unconscious belief. When I work one to one, I always go to the unconscious beliefs, but we always start with the conscious perceptions and try to understand how that conscious perception is a reflection of an unconscious belief. For example, almost happens every time. Your relationship with your parents is probably a reflection of the conflict you have with God. So we start at that level and then we search how that reflects your relationship with God so we can heal it. So uh, I probably, bad, you know more than me about that. And in the hands of the Holy Spirit, everything is useful. But what I think that the course is telling us is do a conscious work with those beliefs and with healing.
yeah, absolutely. That's about it for now, John. There's a lot of very
Okay.
positive messages in the
Yeah,
chat
I
about
bet. Yeah.
encouragement and love and sharing and insights.
Okay. So we have 20 minutes. If any of you would like to directly come on and ask questions of Martin or just make observations about what he's been saying and what's been going on, well, now is the time for you to. Hey, Dean. Dean's a
Hi,
long time.
John.
Dean, come on.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Martin. And
Hello.
Martin.
Yeah,
Um,
Martin.
see. Yeah, I'm wondering how, first of all, I just want to say what I've come to realize in this discussion, how it's the inquiry that's important.
Mm.
We love to be in the inquiry, don't we?
Mhm.
We're willing not to know.
Mm.
We're willing not to know.
Sure.
And that is so un-ego-like, isn't it? I think I know, and how I know how my wife should act, my kids should act,
Yeah, right.
and unfortunately, how I should act, and that's the self-judgment, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
So anyway, it's all a process. I mean,
yeah,
everything is a lesson God would have me learn.
yeah,
Everything. The
yeah,
dog
Yeah.
poop on my shoe,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's a good
And so
illustration.
like Martine said, when you get into this, oh, it has to be this, or it has to be that, you know. I have a prayer partner and she's into so much the metaphysical. I just want her to be real. Tell me what your real problem is, you know? And anyway, it's a beautiful discussion. Thank you, Martine, so much. I'm just wondering, my only question is, how has your inquiry affected your music? You're surrounded by this
Yeah.
background of guitars and keyboard, and so there must be some coming together of that, isn't there? I don't know.
It's all fake. It's a fake background. No, no, no.
No.
I well, it's I wouldn't say that the inquiry or the practice of the course changed the way I do music. I wouldn't put it that way, but uh, setting aside my musician, how you say that, persona, was a whole process because it was like a kind of death. You know, I'm not an orchestral conductor. I'm not more a composer. There was a whole process, um, because it was like this guys that our ego puts, these masks, these characters that we perform, and I had to let that character die. Now I have this character,
Right.
the course teacher and whatever. So it wasn't that hard because I loved so much this new character that it wasn't a pain to release the old character. But there was a process there. Oh, who are you? I'm Martin, a musician. No, I can't say that anymore. But I don't say I'm a, I'm a Course in Miracles student anymore. But there was a process regarding that. And and I also had like there was some anger in that process also
Mm.
because there was a part of me that rejected that character. I don't really know why, but when I left that character aside, I realized that there was some resentment to what I did in when I was a musician. So I also have to do some forgiveness about that. It was subtle. For example, um, there was a time where I don't know, I was in social networks or something like that, and I saw people conducting and doing things like that, and I could sense a really subtle like anger or something that was not peace. So I had to release that. I had to forgive that. Now I feel that that I am over that, and that is why I reconnected with music. I think this is the better way to explain it. There was a time that I had to reject music. I always thought that I wanted to leave the music world. I use this image. I had the feeling that music was a sea and I was in the shore and I wanted to get back to the beach, and then a wave came and get me back in the ocean of music. So it was kind of a struggle to leave that world behind. But now I feel that it's in the past. I'm at peace with it, and that's that allowed me to use music in a more honest and humble way. And what I'm doing right now is doing music for my meditations. In my YouTube channel, I have a lot of meditations. I use the music for that, and I think it's very powerful. And the few activities, for example, I conduct a choir. The few activities that I'm still doing like that, I am enjoying them so much more. And what's most interesting maybe is that I realized that music was a means to relate with people. So when I was conducting, when I was producing bands, it wasn't about the music, it was about the relationships. And the course helped me a lot with those relationships. I think the music is the art of combining egos, not sounds. So it really helped me. It really helped me with those experiences. And now it's everything is getting into place. I'm loving doing music once again. I'm using it to empower the message of the course. So I'm at peace with that now. I don't know if that answers the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie, can you come on screen? Or
Martin, muchas
Yes.
gracias para esto. I think that there was so much of what you and John were discussing the last 45 minutes to an hour that really hit me. But I think there were two things more than anything else as you were talking about your integration of, the various concepts and parts of the course. I was thinking about the whole concept in quantum mechanics that as you observe something, you change it, and that the whole thing about, well, the world doesn't change, and yet the way you see things and sort of the process of, I think, forgiveness, for lack of a better word, or letting go, that it changes the worldview. And also, I think the second thing that I think, and maybe you can talk about this a little more, was that, when you were talking about the, counseling and healing, that's a very important point to me because of the nature of the work I do. I'm a physician, and I think that many times what happens is that when you're confronted with somebody and you try to explain to them what it is they need to do, you can really see the resistance to what they're saying. I said, well, I came to you to change this for me, but I'm not really willing to do the work. And it also applies both for me as, for me as somebody who's trying to help them, as well as for themselves, where I'm saying, well, you have to do this, and I'm not willing to work. And if you're not willing to do this, I'm not willing to work with you. So it's actually really quite interesting. Anyways, that was, this has been really helpful, and I'm very much.
Okay. Thank you, Leslie. I think that he's pinpointing a very interesting topic, especially because of his line of work. And I think the course speaks deeply about this, how we should, maybe that's not a good word, how we should help our brothers, what should be our mindset towards helping others. And the course, I think it's very precise about that. So I think that the first thing we should remember is that we are the ones that need help. The asking for help of our brother is a reflection that we need help. But I think it's important to understand that we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to help. And that we should ask the Holy Spirit how we should help others. This could be done like actually saying it, or it could happen spontaneously. But I think that the main focus of the course about helping others has to do with your perception of the other person. It's not a separate being. It's not an inferior being. It's a brother. It's the same as you. His problem is his problem, and actually the real problem is the belief that we are not one. So we
There you
should
go.
help at that level. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do things at the level at which the person is asking. For example, if someone comes to you, Leslie, with a broken leg, I don't think that it's loving that for you to tell him, "Oh, read this blue book. It's really interesting. You're gonna learn that you don't have a leg because you're not a body." Of course, that the course
Oh.
is not saying that.
It's all on your mind.
Yeah, it's all on your mind. Don't sweat about it. And so I think that we should help at the level at which people are asking for help, because that's what the Holy Spirit does, and that's what Jesus does. Oh, you believe in books, you believe in words, you believe in problems. Well, have this book with words that will help you solve some of those problems you think you have, but in the process I will help you understand what's your real problem. So I think that Jesus is being like mischievous is the word. It's like the horse of Troy that you think that he's helping you with the problem you think you have, but it's actually helping you with a deeper problem that you're not conscious that you have. So I think we should do something like that. Oh, you want me to fix your leg? Okay, I do that, but I will do it with the right mind.
Hmm.
I will do it with love. I will do it by asking for help to the Holy Spirit so He can tell me in what way you can accept my love or His love or God's love. So when you set your ego aside, when you set your expectations aside, when you set that idea that you know what the other person needs aside, when you just say, okay, I want to help because I need help. I don't know how to do it. I want to share love because I want to experience love. Tell me what to do. And you have to accept that the other person may not accept your love. That's why the Course says your job is to give the miracle, your job is to give the gift, not to evaluate what has been done with the gift, if it has been accepted. Your job is to give love in a way the other person can understand. And to do that, you have to speak to the other person in the language at which that person speaks. So I think, Leslie, that you can still do your job, but do it from the right mind, asking for guide for the Holy Spirit, with a correct perception and understanding that every miracle you give to your brothers is something that help us all.
Right.
And if the other person doesn't want to understand, well, let it be. If
Yeah.
the other person doesn't want to heal, you are nobody to force healing upon that person. And one last thing we could say, for example, this was part of my personal progress process, because at one point I was saying like, oh, there are so many distortions in the message of the Course, and there are these teachers that are distorting the message. And whoa, bro, wait, that's your ego. Don't go that route. I have to do that work. But one of the things that helped me a lot to not go down that rabbit hole was understanding that the Son of God gets what he wants. If he wants illusions, he gets illusions. If he wants distortions, he gets distortions. If you're afraid of truth, you're gonna go and search for that teacher that won't give you truth. And if the Son of God wants the truth, he will find it, no matter how distorted a teacher will distort the message. Because as Dean said, everything is a lesson. Everything is a lesson. So you can that distorted message can be a lesson of forgiveness that gets you closer to truth. So who am I to judge? Everyone is getting what they really want. So if they want sickness, so be it. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm saying this in the safety of my home. But one of the hardest lessons for me in the last year was accepting that my brother wants to suffer,
Mm.
and that actually was, in a sense, an expression of love, accepting that he wants to suffer. Because when I found myself trying to help the other people, trying to heal, I'm speaking about one specific person actually. I tried to help that person. I tried to heal that person. I tried to correct that person. That was no love. There was no love there. It was my own agenda. It was my own expectations. Do I really want to help you, or your suffering is an inconvenience to me, and that is why I want you to heal? And it was very hard for me to accept that. I had to forgive myself for not being a loving presence in the life of that person.
That
So,
person was your teacher.
of course, that person was showing me my resistance to love. So who is being helped? Who is being healed?
Yeah.
Maybe I had the logo of the teacher, of the helper, but I was the one that was really sick because I couldn't accept the decision of my brother. I couldn't accept the process of my brother. I wanted to change his ego so my ego would be happier. That's not helping. So I have to set all of that aside and forgive myself for that. And as you may realize or figured, when I stopped doing that, the other person became well.
I think that always happens with forgiveness.
Yeah.
When you really forgive, you're the one, oh my God, I'm the one who's forgiven. Because it never did have anything to do with that. That was
Yeah.
all a problem that was inside my mind that
Yeah.
I was being unforgiving. So now
Yeah.
I've released that.
Yeah.
Yeah, works very simple.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not always so easy to detect your ego.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I think that's why for me it's so important to study the course really deeply, because when you study the course, he shows you how the ego works and all his traps and all his distortions and whatever. So when you read the course and try to learn all of what it says about the ego, then when it happens to you, you say, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
What happens. But if you don't read it, it's really difficult to point the maneuver of the ego. So for me, it's really important to study the dynamic
I think
of
that's what
ego.
it really means. I'm always about an advanced teacher of the course. An advanced teacher of the course is really someone who's taking it deeper.
Yeah.
You're really doing the gut level work of the course, and in all honesty. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and it goes from a little willingness to a whole lot of willingness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we're at the end of our time. It flies by. Thank you, Martin. You're wonderful. It's great. It's nice meeting you and seeing your journey through the course and how it's helped you to not just to wake up, but also to be able to communicate the message of the course. So thank you so very much. One of the things we like to do before we close is to share the Lord's Prayer from the course. And I know that Lynn's there with me somewhere, aren't you, Lynn?
Namaste, mighty companions, my beautiful mighty companions. The Lord's Prayer from A Course in Miracles. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen.